Senator Lee, how did you come by your conservatism? How did you become conservative?
You know, it's hard for me to think back to a time when I didn't regard myself as a conservative, but the shortest way I can describe it is I was raised with it. We talked about the Constitution around the dinner table. I was 30 before I realized not everybody talks about the presentment clause over dinner. But,
you know, that's interesting you say that you were raised with it, because Essie and I were talking about this earlier today. Susana Martinez, governor of New Mexico, last night talked about this dinner she went to with her husband, where they talked about issues with some local people there in New Mexico, and they walked out and got in their car and said, I'll be damned, we're Republicans. And there's a moment of clarity for them. My moment of realization on that fact was in law school. You clerked, this is when I took constitutional law, specifically in law school. You clerked for Justice Samuel Alito. You were one of the strongest voices in Elena Kagan's confirmation hearings regarding Obamacare. Constitutional law has to be one of the big groundings of your entire ideology.
It certainly is. It motivates everything I do. In fact, I used to joke that I may have been the first candidate ever to win a statewide election based on the theory of constitutional textualism and originalism. It was an unlikely campaign platform, but it worked. It resonates with people because truth resonates with the American people. People understand that we're in the mess that we're in now because the federal government became too big and too expensive.
You know, I heard you give interviews. I think you were on the wrong side of the prediction market, as was I. I think you predicted that the Supreme Court would strike down Obamacare. Did you not?
I was on the right side of the prediction market. It appears that our Chief Justice changed his mind.
This is what I want to ask. What happened there? Why did Chief Justice John Roberts change his mind?
I don't know, and I'm always reluctant to get inside somebody else's head and to speak for that person, especially when that person isn't here to speak for himself. But I will say this. Sometimes justices have been known to change their minds in the past, in part because maybe they appear to be worried about what the public's going to think about the court as an institution, what the court might think about them individually. And I can't say that that influenced him here, but many have speculated that it might have. The opinion certainly reads in such a way as to support that kind of conclusion, only because I can't fathom what other reason, what other justification that a textualist like John Roberts could provide for an utterly indefensible position that he took in that case, in which he rewrote the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act to call the individual mandated tax, which it isn't.
You know, this Congress has been criticized for its intransigence and for being obstinate, stubborn. And I'm wondering, I actually have said I think that's a good thing. I think it's good that government has gotten slower. It's gotten harder to spend taxpayer money because people need to come to the table over and over again. I like that. I like it. Let's pretend Barack Obama wins. Let's pretend Democrats keep control of the Senate, Republicans keep control of the House, and everything stays the same. Do you think that the so-called Tea Party conservative wing of the Republican Party digs in its heels, or do you think they think about 2016? All right, we need to get some stuff done so that we can make a compelling case for Republicans to come in 2016, or is the compelling case we stood our ground?
The answer to both questions is yes.
Yeah.
They're not mutually exclusive. We have to do both. We have to dig in our heels and resist when it comes to fundamental questions of the purpose of government, our constitutional authority. At the same time, we do have to find areas where we can get something done. The trick is to find what is that something.
Right.
But we can't transgress constitutional boundaries in getting there.
When did you give your support to Mitt Romney? When did you decide Mitt Romney was the guy you saw as needed to be the next president of the United States?
I don't remember what the date was. I think it was sometime back in April or May. You know, it was becoming very apparent he was going to become our nominee. And we need to defeat Barack Obama. I got him behind him.
Count me among the people who really want to hear more about Romney's faith. Not because I'm a skeptic, but because I think it's a really incredible story that talks about family and charity. And I want more people to hear that story. Do you think he's going to speak to that tonight? Do you want him to?
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him speak more to his faith. And if it's not tonight, I hope and expect that he'll do it sometime in the next few weeks. It's part of who he is.
I know.
It's part of what motivates him. It's part of how the public can come to understand this man and why it is that we should trust him with running our country. He is a compassionate, serving individual who has selfless instincts to make the world a better place.
And to add to that, you're a Mormon as well.
I am.
Coming from some insight there.
Yeah, and do you think the country, this is maybe a bad joke, but G.K. Chesterton, one of my favorite philosophers, said the test of a good religion is if you can start making fun of it. And Mormonism has really sort of come into its own in the popular culture, whether it's the Book of Mormon,
South Park,
or South Park. I mean, Mormons are in Hollywood. They're in Congress. They do pretty well.
They're the youngest senator in the United States.
TV networks.
That's saying something. I'm not sure what.
So I think I've seen, as someone who covers faith in politics, I've seen a lot more sort of acceptance around Mormonism in the past 5 years. Have you?
Absolutely. I have, and I think that's one of many reasons why Mitt Romney can and probably will share more about his faith. Again, it's part of who he is, and I think it'll help to humanize him.